Okay, Jeff. You're ready, Mayor.
Well, good evening to everyone, and welcome to the Owensboro Board of Commissioners Special Call Meeting, sometimes called the Garden Club of Owensboro, March the 2nd, 2021. This time we'll ask the City Clerk, Beth Davis, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Jeff Sanford,
Here.
Commissioner Mark Kesslin,
Here.
Mayor Tom Watson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Larry Magliner,
Here.
Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, we'll ask Commissioner Sanford to give us our invocation and pledge to the flag, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
If you'll bow your head and pray with me. Almighty God, our Father, we praise and thank you for this day. You have given us another opportunity to appreciate life and to fulfill our mission as your instruments of peace and progress. Please pardon us for our shortcomings. Help us amend our impieties. May we learn from a pattern of our lives through your Son's example. Father, bless all our endeavors, especially today's meeting. Guide us in our decisions, enlighten our minds in every decision we make. Give us your grace that we may effectively do our parts as public servants. Bless our plans and programs and projects so that we may achieve our objectives for the greater glory. All these things I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jeff.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice and liberty for all.
It's just awkward, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I was trying to read the screen and remember it's just a little different.
Yeah, learned that in the 4th grade, I think. Okay, here we go. Item 4A on the agenda is a presentation about our COVID response fund. This time I'd like to call on the one and only David Ross with United Way. Unmute, David.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
First of all, we just want to express our appreciation to the city and the county, but for your leadership in helping us establish this fund. As you know, it came about pretty quick, and through the city and the county leadership, it really allowed us to move forward and to help give a quick kickstart to this. We've included a report to you and are happy to answer any questions at all that you might have. Amy, have you got anything you want to add?
I don't believe so. Just we didn't know we would still be going when we started this last March. Didn't know if it would be a few months or till the end of 2020, but we're still going. We with the additional funds that were donated, we still have some left. Continue to review applications and try to get those dollars where they're most needed in the community. So we appreciate your help in making that possible.
Doug, would you talk a little bit about how we started and maybe some of the issues that we had when we started and how that's changed for the commission, along with the change in the needs for different services that we've seen?
Of course. So when we first started, when the pandemic first started, David and Amy got together and really created and said, we need to have a community response to the challenges that we're about to see and that we're currently seeing. And so they started the campaign to bring everyone together. A lot of the funding groups, as well as the city and the county, which, you know, without the city leadership, I don't think the COVID response fund would be what it is today, and hadn't been able to help the thousands of people that it was helped. So initially, as we all recall, grocery store shelves were bare. There was very little there. What was there had lines going out the door. And we realized that our food pantries and our food banks were going to be overtaxed. And so we began to put together a conversation on a weekly basis with all the food pantries throughout the region, and really started to work together to solve the issues of food. That was huge, because we also incorporated all the shelters that were in there for all the homeless shelters and those who needed the most vulnerable in our communities at that time. And so we all came together and having conversations. What really came out of that is to realize how fortunate we are to live in our community. And I say that to say that people began to stop worrying about their organization or what's happening with themselves. And they really started worrying more about how do we respond as a community. We saw people sharing supplies. If one group had 25 cases of corn, another one had 25 cases of green beans, they were willing to share. And that if groups had overabundance of food in one pantry and none in another, they were willing to share. Shelters that came together said, hey, I could really use X, and a pantry would make sure that it would be fulfilled. And so the partnership that we helped facilitate, because the COVID-19 response fund, Green River Area COVID response fund, really solidified the ability to say, all right, I need $10,000 to solve this problem. And so when the first initial response fund was primarily for food, looking at pantries, also sheltering, and looking at how shelter was going, and then looking at the most vulnerable populations, in that we didn't know where the needs were going to be met. And so we also, as most of you know, home delivered meals really ramped up. They're still serving 3-4 times the numbers that they were serving before COVID response hit. And with that response, we had to have more drivers. We had to have volunteers come in with cars and deliver food. So that response fund helped solve some of those issues of needing money to solve, to make sure that we had the drivers in place. We even went so far as having a collaboration where people at that time who were laid off from work because they weren't driving, they actually started back up. So we had licensed drivers and qualified drivers that were driving vehicles that knew the area, knew the territory, and knew where to go. And so all of that was huge. It was really a blessing to our community and blessing to those in our community that needed help the most. And I think there's not a nonprofit in the region who didn't have something, some type of benefit from the Green River COVID Response Fund. You know, and so it's progressed. So as we saw the needs change and adjust, we changed and adjust as a committee. And we moved from food to most vulnerable populations to sheltering. And as you can imagine, the last 2 or 3, 4 months, we knew that rent and utility was going to become an issue. And so these funds have been helping that process since its inception, because we knew that people were going to be out of work. They couldn't afford rent payments. They couldn't afford utility payments. So that money's gone in. But recently, that money has been expended to the most extent for rent utility assistance payments. And so we have helped hundreds of people and hundreds of families be able to stay in their homes, be able to pay their utility bills, be able to pay their rent bills, and make sure that they still had someplace to stay. And I say that to say that this Green River Response Fund, that is the reason why that's been able to do that. So while we hear of major problems throughout our state and through other communities that aren't associated with what we do here, this not near as bad here because of what's been taking place, because of the leadership that occurred for the Green River Area COVID Response Fund, and because of the leadership the city showed and the leadership that others in our community and other foundations have shown to work together. And so that's the huge blessing. So can't thank you enough on behalf of the thousands of people who have received help. I greatly appreciate your leadership and your kindness in giving us the confidence that the money will be spent well and we'll be making a difference in people's lives. And that I guarantee you it did. David?
I don't have anything else. Have you got any questions for us? I would open it up for mayor or commissioners. Or
I just would like to say it was pretty easy to think about signing the check and getting the money to moving. And when I had calls from all these corporate citizens that wanted to participate, and it was an even easier choice to select David and your group to distribute the funds. We can get you the money, but we didn't know how to distribute it. And y'all did a tremendous job. And I think Doug said blessings about 7 times during his talk. And I can't tell you what a blessing it was to have y'all help us help those. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, we want to just thank you again. Working with Amy and the Green River Area Community Foundation has been a blessing to all of us. They're great to work with. But there's one thing that I'd like for the commission to know, and that is the first check came from, of course, some of you, and I think Commissioner Smith-Wright and Commissioner Condor were part of that one, and now that's changed, and the new group is moving forward. But Mayor, with your leadership, we were able to put together this fund, and with the strength that getting a city and a county on board, our fund grew faster than any other fund in the state of Kentucky. And so when people were asking where were our city leaders, they were writing checks and supporting us. We appreciate the phone calls. Although, Mayor, you do get up a little earlier than I do in the morning sometime. We appreciate the phone calls, the calls for encouragement. And also, we want you to know that this isn't over, but we're going to continue to do our best to help you and help this community in any way we possibly can. And Nate, we appreciate you and Angela and the staff. Everybody's just been great to help us all along. So we're extremely appreciative.
Thank you, David. Any other comments? Okay, well, thanks so much for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Now we got to go on to the mundane stuff of the city business.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Everybody
you.
have a good evening.
Coming.
Thank you all.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, business. I'd like for you to consider the approval of the minutes dated February 16th, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 6 are ordinances, their second reading. So Ms. Davis, there'll be a roll call vote, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6A, take it, Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 4-2021, an ordinance closing a portion of 2 right-of-ways, an alley right-of-way located between 713 and 719 Faust Avenue and 710 and 718 Gratian Street, and a street right-of-way located between 710 and 718 Gratian Street and 1620 West 7th Street in the city of Owensboro, Kentucky, at the request of Local Property Holdings, LLC, publicly read for approval on second reading the 2nd day of March, 2021.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve this ordinance. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Since we talked about this at second reading, Nate, do you have anything else you want to add?
Nothing further, Mayor, unless there are any questions or you'd like me to pull up the map again.
Any discussion from the commission? Hearing none. Thank you. How about a roll call?
Commissioner Sanford,
Yes.
Commissioner Caslen,
Yes.
Mayor Watson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Magliner,
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6B, please.
Ordinance 5-2021, an ordinance amending the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021, and amending ordinance 7-2020 to receive funds for sale of surplus property, appropriate funds for incentives, receive CARES Act funding and provide for restaurant and bar grant funds, receive federal JAG grant funds and appropriate for purchase of rifles, receive state grant funds and transit and appropriate for capital equipment purchases, and update CDBG and home budget due to revised allocations from HUD. Publicly read for approval on second reading the 2nd day of March, 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. It's a I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Quite a bit to unpack, and I think the city manager did it last time. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, hearing none. How about a roll call, Ms. Davis?
Commissioner Castleton,
Yes.
Mayor Watson,
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Magliner,
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanford.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, the ordinance's first reading. There are none. So we'll go to item 8, municipal orders. Item 8A, Ms. Davis.
Municipal Order 8-2021, a municipal order authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an application for a Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Office of Highway Safety Grant in the approximate amount of $46,000, the proceeds of which will enable the Owensboro Police Department to provide overtime traffic enforcement during specific mobilizations within the city of Owensboro to enhance public safety. No cash match being required by the city. Introduced and publicly read for approval this second day of March, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
City manager, have any comments?
Mayor, the clerk's comments on this item up well. It's a grant that we get pretty much every year for overtime for the traffic safety enforcement efforts.
Thank you. Any discussion from the commission? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll go to item 9, city manager items.
Okay, today for your consideration, we have the following personnel appointments. Sammy Lucky, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to assistant grant superintendent with Parks and Recreation effective March 8th. Jamie Robinson, probationary full-time, non-civil service appointment to refuge truck driver with sanitation department effective March 8th, contingent upon successful completion of all post-offer pre-employment requirements. Stephen Franklin, probationary full-time, non-civil service promotional appointment to Director of Public Works with the Public Works Department effective March 15th. Pamela Green, probationary full-time, non-civil service promotional appointment to Occupational Revenue Clerk with the Finance Department effective March 15th. Zane Rutherford, probationary full-time, non-civil service promotional appointment to Maintenance Equipment Operator with the Street Department effective March 15th. Amanda Kopstad, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to lead telecommunicator with the Police Department effective March 1st. Christopher Beastraker, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to infrastructure supervisor with the Department effective March 9th. Carrie Haynes, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to accountant with the Finance Department effective March 9th. And John Michael Perry, regular full-time, non-civil service appointment to crew leader with Parks and Recreation effective March 19th. Mayor, Commissioners, you might have noticed that I omitted one personnel appointment from the list, and that appointment fell through late this afternoon. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the appointment of Stephen Franklin to Public Works Director. Stephen served as the Deputy Public Works Director for the last 3 years, and I'm happy that we're able to promote from within to fill this important position in the city.
Thank you, city manager. I'll make a motion to approve these promotions.
Second.
Any discussion? I too want to congratulate Stephen. He got to train under a pretty sharp guy in Wayne, so a lot of confidence in him, and I think he's going to do well. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 9B, city manager comments.
No other comments.
Thank you. Communication from elected officials. Commissioner Maglinger.
Thank you, Mayor. We had an event, this week, and I want to thank the Southern Star and the Stanton Foundation for their donation to the Owensboro Neighborhood Alliance to continue the work on the Kendall Perkins Park mural. And I really appreciate that. And also, what we just heard with the Green River Area Community Foundation and the United Way for helping our entire community. So that's all I've got. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Castleton.
Yes.
last month was Black History Month. And anyway, I'd kind of like to recognize a few people in the Black community that I've had the privilege of working with. These individuals have made an impact and are currently working to better our community. One is Mr. Rafe Buckner. He's head of the Northwest Neighborhood Alliance. And Mr. Buckner has volunteered many hours in our community, and he's helped organize the painting of the murals on the wall at Kendall Perkins. And he's helped organize the Black History Parade, which was a great success, and also with the community gardens that we're currently working on. Another is Mr. Michael Johnson, Sr. He's the first Black man to serve as vice chairman of the board at Owensboro Public Schools. Mr. Johnson is currently working to establish a special committee to address children in troubled homes to try to help them to realize the importance of education and help better their futures. And another is Mr. DeMarcus Curry. He's an associate pastor at his church. He works to help the homeless and the jobless people of our community. He set up voting registration booths to help people get registered to vote in the past. And he's had numerous job fairs at the Patino shelter to help people get jobs. And Mr. Travis Owsley, who has organized a group to help distribute. They distributed over 130 Thanksgiving dinners a while back. They've given away many coats and gloves and hats to men, women, and children of the community. And of course, he gives away pizza to the Help Feed the Hungry every other Friday here in the community. And last but not least, Mr. Drayson Williams, who took the time and effort to look up a lot of Black history and post it daily on social media to help educate all of us that go on social media about Black History Month. And I just wanted to recognize these men and women and those that help them, and to let them know that it's important what they're doing to help build a strong community, and that we appreciate all that they've done. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you. Commissioner Glenn?
Yes, a couple of items here. The first is I want to congratulate and thank for their longtime service, of course, Wayne Shelton, Steve Lynn, our city attorney, retired, and Officer Adam Johnson for his great service to OPD. Don't think we get an opportunity enough to thank people who put in years and years supporting our city and doing great work. The other is to encourage people to begin looking at potholes. I don't know, I'm looking at our city manager there, but noticed Evansville had started their war on potholes, and I like to be competitive and win, so I hope we'll have a war on potholes here soon. I know we will not, next plan opens, but there's plenty of them after that snow we had. And then the final item is I want to thank Harry Pedigo for his work in working with that homeless encampment down below Kentucky Legend. He continually reached out to those folks and tried to get them better situations than they had, and I think ultimately that's played a big role in shifting that group to better locations with a roof over their head and access to food. And finally, get the vaccine. There's a lot of vaccine rolling around out there. If you think you can't get the vaccine, I'd contact some of these pharmacies and the health department and hospital. There's quite a bit of vaccine in Kentucky right now, 142,000 doses, and there's no reason it shouldn't be able to go in your arm as well as your neighbors if you make the right connection. So I'd encourage people to do that if you're interested in getting the vaccine. That's all I've got.
Mr. Sanford?
Just a couple comments, Mayor. I'd like to compliment our road crew. I may have said something before, but I keep getting compliments on with our snow and ice event that they did a wonderful job keeping the streets clean and safe for everybody. That was number one. They did a great job. Number two is the Northwest Revitalization that Commissioner Maglinger and I have been working on. I think it's slated to start sometime in April, so there will be some funding available to try to get that neighborhood up and running and looking really nice again. So I think we should have some applications online sometime in April. And that's all. Thank you.
Very much. I wanted to make a few comments. I stay in touch with Clay Horton at the Green River District Health Department quite a bit, and Dr. Dufresne at the hospital, and just want to talk a little bit about COVID. If you've been following it in the paper, you know, I'm on staff at 5 hospitals, so I get to see quite a bit of how people are managing things and how things are going, and quite, you know, if you can follow it in the paper, like I said, you know, our local rates and new infections have steadily declined over the last several weeks, and the 7-day average is kind of about like it was in October of last year, so that's really good. Vaccines were mentioned; they're going well. Seeing more providers and larger allocations of vaccine each week. Owensboro Health Vaccine Program is the workhorse for the entire region, and they're doing a tremendous job out there. I just want to say we're headed in the right direction, but I don't want anybody to get too cocky yet. You know, you still need to wear the mask. You need to have the thought process that you're protecting other people, that the mask is not really protecting you that much. And I was out of town last week, and I can tell you there are areas in this country that I guess they had a mask shortage, and because people weren't wearing them very often. And it's kind of spooky, really, to be in an area where, you know, you get on the elevator and you got your mask on, Barbara had her mask on, and 8 young people got on the elevator and there's no mask. So, you know, so we need to still be vigilant about that. We're kind of, you know, it's kind of, I can use, like Clay uses football analogy, you know, we don't want to fumble once we get to the goal line, because there's just way too much opportunity for us to get too cocky and get out of our lane. And from a numbers standpoint, the number of infections at the hospital continue to decrease. My granddaughter works in the COVID unit and CCU at the hospital, and she's told me, you know, that, you know, they actually have time to get a sip of water and relax just a little bit, because those numbers are going down. To this date, the hospitals distributed 19,000 first shot vaccines, and 13,000 second shots, and things are looking good for our community. But I just want to stress that let's don't get too cocky. Let's remember the things that got us here, and that even though we're supposedly all in this together, you know, what everybody does for each other is what makes this whole thing work. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that. I had Bob Glenn asked me to speak about the COVID issue, and I try and let the experts talk about it, but I promise you I'm daily trying to delve into it, because I'm in healthcare. I've been in healthcare almost 5 decades, and I've seen patients every day. And I'll tell this story on one young man that came in, and he's a diesel mechanic, and I was fitting his prosthesis, and he had one of these, you know, light blue masks on, and it was about as dark as your computer. And I said, James, what's the deal with the mask? He said, well, they told me to put one on in March. They've been wearing the same mask since last March. So you got to think about those things, because truly the only real mask that works is the N95, and has to be fit. If you ever had to wear one for very long, it's uncomfortable. But these masks do work, and you can tell that by the rate of influenza that we've had in this community, and it's almost nil. So there's something about the mask. It's not the perfect answer to everything, but together, everybody does their part. You know, we can continue to move forward, and towards the whole thing about herd immunity. That's where we want to try and get. You know, if we get to 75 to 85% herd immunity, then we have an opportunity to get back to somewhat of normalcy. And that's what we need to look for. And you can Google herd immunity and it'll give you a nice description about it, but that's truly going to be what's going to make it. And with the therapeutics that are available, Johnson & Johnson's coming on with a one-shot vaccine. AstraZeneca is coming on with a one-shot vaccine. And more people are trying to, you just got to encourage your neighbor. There's vaccines out there. You got to try and get them to take it. And hopefully, you know, we'll get to looking at the other side of this daggone hill and have an opportunity to get back to our lives. So just wanted to share that part with you. I want to make sure that everybody understands that at City Hall and your local government, they take it very seriously. And fortunately, you can tell by our numbers, we've been truly blessed by not having a lot of COVID around us. And our first responders who are face to face with it every day, they've done well. So I want to thank everybody for participating, and just keep that in mind. We're not there yet. You got to keep looking for herd immunity. That's the secret. And once we get to that point in our Commonwealth and in the country, then we can truly say we're on the right track. So thanks for letting me share that with you. And that's all I have tonight. So if you all would allow me to entertain a motion to adjourn, could I have a second, please?
Second.
For those that want to stay can stay, but for the rest of us, this meeting's over with. Thank you very much.